Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the AEW Dynamite review for the 10th of March 2021. Yet again, they hit the show out of the park. While I didn't like everything on the show, for sure, they are once again the best company in the country and maybe the world. I know Japanese fans would say New Japan, but easily best company in the country by far. And I would say, storyline wise, for the style that I think gets over with the masses, the world. Anyway, that doesn't mean that everything's great, but it means that, and I figured this out by watching tonight, and I've watched AEW from the beginning. I care about what happens with at least half to three quarters of their characters week to week. I can't say that about WWE. I haven't been able to say that about WWE on most of their roster for at least 15 years, if not longer. When it comes to AEW, the main show, Dynamite, I would say half to three quarters of the characters I care what happens most weeks. So that says a lot about, at least for me, a fan of 32 years in the business for 12, what draws me in versus what may draw in other people. So there's a new Dynamite Open video package. Rey Fenix with Pac, defeating Matt Jackson with Nick Jackson. I mean, certainly this is Matt's first single match since several years ago, I think 2016-17. He certainly has an interesting style. But, certainly it was a spectacle to say the very least. Fenix nails Matt with a drop kick, and SCU looks on from the stage. And springboard offense, and then a dive. Takes down Matt with a tiaras, and then they go to the floor. Springboard headbutt. Matt goes to the floor. And then Fenix lands a tope con hero over the top rope. Beatdown continues with several strikes. Then both guys end up exchanging strikes. Fenix takes Matt down with a Rana, but Matt counters it into a powerbomb. Slingshot senton by Matt, followed by two, and then Matt targets Fenix back in and hits the Cazadora facebuster for a near fall. Matt applies the sharpshooter, but Fenix forced his way out of things. He reaches the ropes. He makes a comeback. Springboard dropkick. Doesn't follow up on it. Then we see a Death Valley driver. Fenix hits a cutter and counters some running offense. Matt gets struck, leads to the double down, and then they trade punches in the middle. Fenix hits a limb trap slam for a near fall. Matt then goes for suplex. Fenix goes out of the ring. Fenix tries the rope walk kick. Matt scouts this, comes back in the ring with a Canadian Destroyer. Gosh, I hate that move. Always have, always will. Hits the second Destroyer on the floor, which nobody bothers to sell. Then Fenix makes it back in the ring and barely beats the count. Matt lands top rope double drop for near fall. Reapplies the sharpshooter. Fenix fights up, and Matt gets revenge by super kicking Pac on the floor. Trade strikes once more. Matt flips out of a German land super kicks. Fenix pops up, hits an enziguri, and both men are down again. Then they trade strikes, fire off super kicks, and out of nowhere, Fenix lifts up Matt, hit the fire thrower driver, and picks up the win over one half the tag champs. This is not the type of match I like. Honestly, I think this stuff is video game garbage. But I understand from a drawing in new fans and where today's fan is, I understand that this has a market. And even though it's not for me, that doesn't mean it's not for anybody, and I can see where it has value. So, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley talk about the events that ended Revolution. Kingston implies he had a panic attack because the last time he was that scared, he was in jail. He calls out Omega, asking if all of this was a joke. Moxley says he thought Omega tried to really blow them up, but they came to an agreement that Impact was behind it, the brand, as in Impact Wrestling. Moxley didn't win the World Championship, but he did have his drinking buddy back. He and Kingston then kind of go back and forth a little bit. Moxley tells Omega that if he had a weapon, he better well use it. This was fine. With what happened at the pay-per-view, they had to play it off somehow. Getting these two friends back is a good thing. I'm good with all of this. Not so good with what's up next, but I understand that it was just to set up an angle. So, Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson defeats Seth Gangus. Gangus is a talent from Dark. He's yet to win a match. Cody hits the Alabama Stampede right away. Locks in the figure four leg lock, gets a submission victory in about 90 seconds. Tony Schiavone comes out. Microphone didn't work. And then he asks Cody about his shoulder. Penta comes out, interrupts, and gets someone to translate for him. Tells Cody to shut up, and then says he's 1,000 times better than him. And if Cody's the Prince of Pro Wrestling, then Penta is the Lord of Lucha Libre. This actually got the fans to turn along. I don't know if it was the actual fans or the paid ones, but anyway, it sounded cool that they were chanting for Lucha Libre. It may not be the style I like, but if that's where the crowd wants to go, then that's where you go. Penta then, without a translator, said he said Cody lost at Revolution, and if it had been just Penta, Cody would have lost even more. He hurt Cody's arm so bad that he couldn't pick up his baby girl when she's born. And then Cody runs in and does a brawl with Penta, because that's, I guess, over the line. There's a quick pull apart, and at least this is there. This was good. Chuck Taylor with Orange Cassidy cut a promo. This was not good. They're in an arcade. Chuck asked Miro for one more match, with the added stipulation if he loses, Chuck goes back to being the butler. And he says he'll do it forever this time. Then they add a stipulation that there's lots of video games machines at ringside. So apparently they're going to break a bunch of video game cabinets, and this is supposed to be wrestling. Chuck Taylor just needs to retire. I mean, I'm sure that, he could be maybe a landscaper, or he could perhaps paint houses, but wrestling is not something he should be doing. Anyway, Schiavone introduces Sting. Sting says Darby's dangerous. Lynch Archer interrupts. Jake Roberts interrupts. And Archer said that if things don't change, he's going to take much, much more time, and he'll take more than time. They left with that, and the interview segment was over. Sting basically leaves right after that. Anyway, if Sting and Archer is going to go, and they put Sting on the shelf because Archer lays him out, this isn't that bad. They try to show QT Marshall and Lee Johnson interview, but technical difficulties prevent that. Ethan Page tried to cut an interview in his debut. That didn't work either. There's basketball audio that's overlapping with the wrestling audio, which is just horrible. I assume it's a satellite feed problem, as others have stated. But needless to say, Ethan Page looks really good in the match. They do a nice back and forth exchange early, but it's clear that Page is the pushed talent here. Page hits a shoulder block, and then Page goes off on his back, hits a backbreaker. Johnson comes back with a back elbow and a neck breaker. Follows up with a Blue Thunder bomb for near fall. They both go to the top rope. Page hits a body slam and then springs into a cutter for a near fall. Would everybody stop using cutters, please, please? Then he tries to leap out, but Page takes advantage with a bicycle kick, and then Ultimately, Paige hits the Ego's Edge, which is a Razor's Edge release for the win. Paige continues his beatdown post-match. QT Marshall, who is supposedly the trainer and mentor of Lee Marshall, does nothing. Dustin Rhodes runs out, makes the save. Marshall walks out of the building. Hangman Page is interviewed about how he's spending Matt Hardy's money. He bought whiskey at Saddle, lots of vinyl music, which he donated, and a new lawnmower. Is he one of the Mexicals now? Anyway, Dark Order shows up and rides the lawnmower, but they wouldn't let Alan Angels hop on as it took too much weight. So maybe Alan Angels is breaking away from the Dark Order. Angels is more talented than that gimmick is anyway, so I'd be good with that. Shivani begins to introduce Christian Cage. Omega interrupts. He's joined by Callis and the Good Brothers. Callis said we're not going to get to hear from the new signee because they call the shots in AEW, which I think this was stupid. Why bring Christian out if you're not going to let him talk? He could bury WWE. He's probably never going to go back, so why not let him bury him? And he could say why he's there. They could do something with it. Anyway, so Callis says that everything went according to plan except for one thing. They get blamed for not delivering the giant explosion. That made them happy to take away what the fans wanted, which is a good way to turn it around. They took away Moxley's big hero moment and Kingston's heroism. Callis calls this a win-win for everybody. If the explosions had gone off, Moxley would be maimed. Since they didn't, Moxley looks like an idiot. Omega said he's getting goosebumps imagining seeing Moxley get vaporized in the ring, but he will cherish the memory of humiliating him instead. Kingston walks out, but before he could speak, Callis talks to him, says that he had him in Impact, but he had to fire him because every time he got close to success, he'd screw it up. Callis gave Kingston 10 seconds to retreat, and then they mocked Kingston's actions at Revolution, and Omega asked what he hopes to accomplish by challenging Omega out here, challenges him to hit him. Kingston finally does hit him. Immediately he's attacked by the Good Brothers. Then Moxley runs out, and Kingston clears his house. Another countdown clock. This time Christian's out. Christian stares off with Omega. Omega tries to cheap shot Christian. Christian then nails or tries to nail the Unprettier, but Callis pulls him out, and Christian is left in the ring with, the AEW Championship. He holds it up for fans to see, and everybody goes home happy. Well, I would have liked to hear Christian speak. The tease of Christian and Omega could be interesting, and it would be good to see Omega in there with a guy who could actually carry him to a decent match. Anyway, Shida, Mizunami, Thunder Rosa versus Nyla Rose, Vicky Guerrero, Dr. Britt Baker with Rebel, and Makitich, or whatever the Japanese girl's name is. I'm sorry, I don't follow Japanese women. Teams all brawl. Shida gets nailed with a microphone. Match is underway. Japanese girl misses one of the big moves. She does the cutest in the world thing that she does in Japan. Shida fights her off, tags in Mizunami. She does the rope pull thing and downs the other Japanese lady with clotheslines. Rosa and Rose both tag in. Rosa lays in kicks and strikes. Heels do a beatdown. Rosa comes back through the break. Shida then comes back, attempts to suplex her. Baker then ends up missing on a couple of strikes, and then we get big move that nobody really cares about. Rosa drop kicks Nyla Rose, and Baker and Rose are the only two left in, but Rosa dispatches of her opponent. Rosa lands a dive into the pile on the outside of the ring. She tries to roll through, but Vicky Guerrero interferes, pulls Rosa's leg upon re-entry, and Ataich manages to hit a swinging DDT. Rebel comes back in, tries to interfere with a crutch, but Rosa sends her packing and hits the Fire Thunder driver for the win. Thunder Rosa is the best woman they have. Britt Baker's a close second. Baker attacks Rosa with a crutch and locked in the lockjaw. Matt Hardy's out with Private Party. He said he's disappointed about the match, but he has more than enough money to fund the expansion of his empire. He introduces the newest additions to the team, Butcher, Blade, and Bunny. So, wow, we have 2 tag teams. Eventually, there'll be a split off. Somebody goes babyface, I'm sure. TNT Championship, Darby Allin, Scorpio Sky. This was a really good match and has some really good wrestling in it. Darby Allin takes needless risks, but he's one of the most over people in the promotion, so it works. They show respect before the bell. Neither end could really establish dominance early. Chain wrestling, Sky occasionally gets frustrated throughout the match. Allin would out-wrestle him at points. Then Allin sends Sky to the floor. Sky avoids a dive to the outside. Allin tries to flip back into the ring, hurts his leg in the process, gets knocked down with a forearm, allowing Sky to take control. And despite the leg injury, Sky goes after the back, which makes no sense. Sky goes for sunset flip. Allin counters into a cradle for near fall. Sky follows up with a strong right hand, drops Allin to the mat. Allin turns another attempt into a stunner. Allin then hits the code red for a near fall. Gets nailed with a boot from Sky, who keeps the offense going. He repeats the German suplexes. Allin tries to escape, but Sky hits another German into the turnbuckle, which looked just brutal. Allin sends Sky to the floor, goes for the tope dive. Sky manages to hit a cutter on the floor, again looking brutal. Really cool match. Back in the really cool spot there. Dangerous, but cool looking anyway. Back in the ring, Sky hits a brain buster for a near fall. Allin goes to coffin drop, but Sky turns it into a power bomb. Sky goes to TKO. Allin locks in a small package, gets a win, retains the title. Allin tries to show respect post-match. Sky attacks him, locks in the heel hook. Sky wouldn't release it. And Allin taps and taps and taps. Officials had to come out and try and break it up. So apparently Scorpio Sky is heel, which is pretty cool actually. So next week, Moxley and Kingston versus the Good Brothers. Cody versus Penta, Jurassic Express, and Bear Country versus Matt Hardy, Private Party, The Butcher and the Blade. My gosh, these 10-man matches, 8-man matches, killed them, please. Jade Cargill in action. And unsanctioned anything goes match. Britt Baker and Britt Baker, DND, and Thunder Rosa. Overall, still stuff I want to see. I want to see the Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston thing because they got that over. Cody and Penta was done in one night. That's interesting enough. You can throw away the 10-man tag. Cargill in action could be good, and the women's match should be good. So overall, again, I'm interested in what happens next week and wish I didn't have to wait a week. Anyway, Inner Circle War Council. It is a heck of an angle. I just wish they'd given this a name at the end. We'll get there. But anyway. So, grouped up there is Jericho, MJF, Hager, Santana, Ortiz. No Wardlow at first. Jericho said the Inner Circle has been a little bit of a decline. He says easily handled. And he says they're the smartest people in the business. And he teased adding new members. MJF interrupts and says no. He says time to let somebody go. Sammy Guevara's music hits. He walks out. He addresses Jericho and says he needed to show him something. Jericho wouldn't have it. Jericho looks up at the video package. Video played of him on the video board. Guevara said he'd hidden a camera showing MJF planning to overthrow Jericho in the Inner Circle. MJF told the Inner Circle to attack Jericho, and they all turned around and attacked MJF. And Jericho kicks MJF out of the Inner Circle. MJF begs off, says he had no interest in taking over the Inner Circle, Jericho's group, because he had formed his own group. Lights go out, maybe a little longer than they should have. FTR, Tully Blanchard, Shawn Spears, and Wardlow appear in ring. Harwood smashes a bottle over Hager's head. Spears goes after the leg of Guevara with a chair. Wardlow hits Jericho with a chokehold, knee lift finisher. FTR and hits Santana and Ortiz with the spike piledriver. MJF hits Jericho with a dynamite diamond ring. Busts him open in the process and attacks him with his own belt, or his own bat, I'm sorry. Wardlow powerbombs Jericho off the stage through tables, and we close the show. By far, they just turned like 10 guys into players in storylines in one angle. And WWE couldn't do that if their life depended on it right now. Could they in the old days? Yes. Up and down the card, late 80s, early 90s, even through 97, 98, maybe, they could do it. The last 20 years, WWE could not put together one angle that was as good as the angles on AEW consistently for a month straight altogether. Now, that's not to say WWE hasn't had good angles, but up and down the card, they do not have, nor have they had in 2 decades, the ability to get everybody caring about their deal, except for, maybe, if we want to talk about the NXT run, the original NXT run up until 2 or 3 years ago. But that wasn't managed by WWE. It wasn't main roster. Anyway, I'll be back with the NXT review and more Smoky Mountain stuff. And keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.